Well, good afternoon. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Celeste Giordano with CelesteGiordano.com, your show host with Global Legacy and Wealth Building. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Watch us live also on your smart TV and Roku cable channel, YouTube, LinkedIn, and now on Fanbase and Blue Sky. Download our free WCEG mobile apps. Alexa, play WCEG Talk Radio, and listen to WCEG on any of our 12 podcast distribution platforms. And last but not least, our disclaimer, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. And I am so excited to be coming here today from Outer Banks, North Carolina. Wonderful how we have great things like Zoom. And I have two amazing ladies. This is their first time on WCEG Talk Radio. And I also want to thank Penny Rogers and the board for this amazing platform that gives this opportunity to bring amazing people and to hear their stories and their information and education to share with each of you. So one thing I'd like to share with you is to say, Joni, great to have you with us. Deborah, so glad to have you with us. And one thing that I'd like to say is, have you ever dreamed of writing a book? Our guests on today's shows are experts in different but related fields, brought together by books. Debrah Englert is an entrepreneur in the beauty industry and has written a new book sharing her expertise and launched a national program to teach stylists how to build their own businesses. You will meet her in just a minute. Our second guest today is Joni Sullivan Baker. As a publicist for Christian authors, she works with the experts who write books to help them achieve greater discoverability through obtaining media and podcast interviews. Deborah is an example of an expert who proved it by writing a book. Joni is a seasonal professional who helps authors embrace being an expert. Again, ladies, welcome to WCEG Talk Radio. How's things going, Deborah?
Going very well. Thank you for having me, Celeste.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you and your first time here. And Joni, we are so glad to have you with us. How have things been going for you?
Just great. Thank you very much. Lots of good news today.
Yes, absolutely. God is good all the time. That's for sure. So what I'm going to do is I am going to read Deborah's bio. And then on the second half of the show, we're going to interview Joni. But anyways, we're going to get started with Debrah Englert. And she is the CEO and founder of Hair Pro Solutions. And Debrah Englert, Healthy Hair, Healthy Body. I apologize. Deborah is the CEO and founder of the national program for stylists called Hair Pro Solutions and the owner of her own salon, Debrah Englert Healthy Hair, Healthy Body in the Cincinnati area. With over 40 years of experience as a master hair pro consultant, national platform artist, and educator, Deborah has built a legacy of success by empowering thousands of stylists with proven systems and strategies. Deborah's expertise spans multiple facets of the industry. She was the founder, CEO, and driving force behind a day spa, successfully leading a team of over 25 professionals for over 14 years. That is amazing, Deborah. Additionally, she managed a large salon within a prominent salon chain and served as the educational director, further solidifying her reputation as a top-tier educator and leader in the field. In addition, her extensive journey in the beauty industry is highlighted by invaluable mentorship, collaborations with the world's leading hairstylists. Wow, that is so impressive, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it has been quite the journey.
Absolutely. And you've been in the Cincinnati area all this time?
Yes, I have. I've traveled and trained in all the cities in the US, but my brick and mortar store is in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Absolutely. And I have been looking so forward to this interview today with you as well as with Joni, because you're first time guest here today, because both of you have amazing stories and education to share with our audience and listeners. And I want to congratulate you on a new book and program, and we look forward to talking about that as well as learning about the views on the industries and ways to help the next generation of stylists to succeed and grow. But before we get to that, tell us a bit more about you and where did you grow up and have you always done hair?
Well, my dream started at about age 5. I would go to the beauty salon with my mother and get my hair done with hers, which was super fun. And I just fell in love with being there with the ladies and listening to the conversations and so on. I'm from a small town, Hillsborough, Ohio. So I grew up in a salon environment that was in a home, not in a salon environment like what I had with the day spa, but it was an independent individual and she was amazing. And she had a full clientele and it was so fun to watch her work that I just think I fell in love with it right there. And I went on to go to vocational school because I really didn't want to wait till I graduated to be able to start. I wanted to graduate and start.
Right.
And so I had that opportunity because there is a organization called Great Oaks Vocational School here in Cincinnati, and I was able to attend while I went to high school. And I graduated at age 17 and began to do hair immediately. And I have been in love with it since then.
That is amazing. And tell us a little bit more about your current business, Debrah Englert Healthy Hair, Healthy Body, and all of its components.
Well, my passion has been to really help people. So by starting this company, what I'm able to do is to bridge the traditional styling options with helping clients that have hair loss or any kind of hair thinning due to any kind of medical condition. So this location is really wonderful because it's private offices. And so it's a completely private environment. So once the client comes in, they have freedom to talk about what their challenges are, whether it be a traditional service need or whether it be something that's more medical. So because I have been a hairstylist for a lot of years, what happens is I have a clientele that is somewhat aging, and they followed me around for all 40 years. I'm so honored, which is just incredible. And I've been able to help them as they transition in their lives and have different kinds of needs.
You know, that's so very impressive, Debrah. And you have more than a salon. You have a multifaceted business. When did you realize for yourself you were building a business?
Well, I was lucky because I had great mentors. And from the very beginning of my career, when I had my first job, I worked for a man called Robert Farwick, and his dream was to really professionalize the industry. And so, what he wanted was stylists that would become salon owners. And so, when I applied for a job there, he asked me why you want to work for me. And I said, because someday I'd like to have your job. And I don't know whatever possessed me at 17 to say that, but that's why he hired me. And from that minute on, he trained me into what it was like to be an owner of a business. And so I got that start very young. And I had parents that owned their own businesses. So I had that experience from, my past family experience. So
You
that's how
know,
the whole thing started.
and that's really amazing, Debrah, because not everybody has that opportunity and that experience that you had the opportunity to go through. I know several people that are salon owners, and over the course of my years of getting my hair done, I've always dealt with the salon owner. I didn't deal with somebody that worked at somebody else's salon. So, I have a very good relationship with about 3 or 4 people in a course of over 40 years that have done my hair. And it's just amazing to hear your story, because their story is nothing like that. And they're amazing ladies as well. But, your story is very impressive, of the mentorship, and then how you're mentoring and giving back today as well.
Mhm. Yes, I love that part.
So, what has driven you to develop Hair Pro Solutions and write this book for other stylists? What is the need that you see for these other women and men?
Well, because I work with and go back and do work with the vocational school that I graduated from, I get the opportunity to have the insight of what's happening in the industry and who's coming into the industry. Are they graduating? And so what happened was I realized not everyone had the same opportunity I had. Even if they went to the same school and they were in the same environment, their backgrounds were different. They didn't necessarily have a mentor. And so I wrote the book kind of as a mentor, because I thought that this would be a great opportunity for them to have some voices from the greatest hairstylists in the world. So by having that training with the Paul Mitchells and the, sorry guys, I don't know what happened there.
All right.
But I was trained with the Paul Mitchells and the Robert Farwicks and all of those individuals. So I decided to write the book to put their work into the book as well. So it's not just my work, it's their work and what they taught me. And so this gives a young person an opportunity to have an expanded view from beauty school to what the salon industry really looks like and what they might need to be a business owner versus just being a stylist behind a chair.
Absolutely, Deborah. From looking at the book, it appears as a practical workbook style approach to what you are covering. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book and what's inside the book?
I sure can. So I started with the concept that I really wanted to have a systematic approach for them, because our whole day is about having systems that work. And so I started with, how do they get the client to start with? And so that was all about branding themselves and creating an image for themselves and identifying the ideal client and those kind of things. And then it goes into consulting with the client once they're in, and then it takes them through all the servicing. And then it even takes them into the follow-up of which systems take them from the very beginning of the service all the way through and post-service, and getting the client to come back. Because a lot of times the client will leave the salon and they don't have an appointment. And so there's even a rebooking system. Why would you rebook a client? It's more convenient for the client, right?
Absolutely.
If they know when their appointment is.
Absolutely. So, and I'm just thinking of my own personal experience, Deborah, is that, a lot back in the day, let's say 20, 30 years ago, women went to cosmetology school, and they really didn't teach y'all business, did they, back in the cosmetology school?
We got a little bit of business training, but I wouldn't say it was anything that really gave us an opportunity to step into the role of owning your own business. I think, they give you kind of like what the tax laws are and those kind of things. It's kind of I would say a 2-minute course, right? They basically give you, or maybe a 1-hour course on running a business. And then the rest of it is about the technical.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, like you say, the 2-minute thing about how to, the taxes and this or that, but they also didn't teach you the people skills.
Right.
because you're going to deal with all different types. I'm sure you've dealt with different types, some people may consider me a difficult client. I have one hairstylist that fired me and I said, "You can't fire me." And she's, "Well, I'm firing you," but she was having a bad day, but generally I'm a pretty easy person. But you have a lot of different personalities and working with people. Some people come in a one time only, and then some people come in and try you for a while, and some people become lifetime clients, right? But
Mhm.
that's a people skill that it's that you work with people with that. Is that not true?
Oh, yes, that's absolutely true. And our ultimate goal is to have a full book, right? Because if we've got enough clients coming in every week, then we can generate financial freedom and success in the industry. But without that, we really, the client is the funding. I mean, let's just face it. And so what I'm trying to get the stylist to understand is the customer service and how you treat the client is critical to whether or not
Absolutely.
the client wants to come back
Absolutely.
and back, right? So that's the goal.
So what do you hope stylists will gain from reading and using this beautiful book?
Well, I hope that they gain the systems and the skills necessary to run their own businesses, because it's not it even if they're just behind the chair and they're working for someone else. I want them to understand that that chair, they own it. While they're in it, they own it. And every time a client sits in it, it's their client that they have to be able to get to repeat, right? And I know from a salon owner standpoint, when I own my day spa, I for sure want them to get repeat business because I need that chair to be busy, right? And so I help them to understand that this isn't just doing hair. And yes, our art is really important, but it's a science and it's a lot of other things, but the business piece is critical to their success.
Absolutely. I mean, they go hand in hand. You could be a master stylist, but if you have very poor people skills, I don't see how your business is going to succeed. I don't care how great you are, but if you don't know how to treat people, they're not going to come back. And if you don't know how to run a business, you're not going to stay in business long, right?
Absolutely correct.
And I'm sure that's some of the things that you teach them in your book. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yes, it
So
starts with the business building.
absolutely. So we noticed you approach this topic not only on the practical matters of how to do hair, but talk to stylists about building a brand and some other lessons. Are you suggesting that stylists develop a mindset of a business owner?
It is essential that they understand that they're a business owner. Because if they can't get that piece, what happens is they don't come in on time. They don't dress the part. They defeat themselves. It's and I saw that happen. I could stand right next to someone in a salon and I was booked solid and they were empty chair.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I could see the difference. And I think sometimes it was just that I could see them defeating themselves, things that they would say to the client or not say, right? The things we don't say sometimes are the things that we're really missing that the client needed to hear. Like, how do you style your own hair at home? Right? Can you repeat that? Can you make yourself look good post service? Because every one of us that's a client wants to look great post service too. So we want to be able to have it be repeatable, right? So
Absolutely. And I used to ask my hairstylist, I was like, "Who does your hair?" And they say, "Oh, Betty over here cuts my hair," or this or that, or whoever's available, some of them would say, but that is so true. And one of the things, and I think you mentioned it, Deborah, because I used to coach someone that owned a hairstylist 10 years ago, and this is when they started, doing automation where they had programs that you could let people come in and schedule their appointments and things of this nature. And I was telling them, I said, you need an automated thing instead of having to wait and call you to make an appointment. But I'm like you, I mean, and when I get my hair done, I don't leave that salon until we have booked 4 weeks out my next appointment. I am an every 4 week person, and my appointment is booked the minute I leave that salon. And I already know if it's going to be, color and highlights, is it going to be a, haircut and color, whatever it's going to be, it's every 4 weeks. And, but some people don't offer those services where they have automation, where you do have to call someone. And if you're closed on a Sunday or a Monday, like most hair salons are, or you can't reach them, or they don't have a receptionist because they're a small entrepreneur and they can't afford a receptionist right now, it's time is money, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the booking is really important. There are softwares in our industry that can help with pre-bookings. They can help book ahead. They can even give you notice when a client hasn't been in for a while. And so that you have that opportunity to do a follow-up. So the software that we have has really improved in the last 10 to 15 years, to where you can even go online yourself and book an appointment with most of us. Now, it's difficult if you've got someone who's really, really super booked, because you're going to have a hard time finding something even online. But the benefit is that sometimes if a client cancels, it'll open that spot up immediately. And so if someone's on there looking, it'll have that opportunity in that cancellation. And so for someone who's new and young, that online booking is critical to their success. Because
Absolutely.
if they forget to book you, you at least can go on, and it could be 1 o'clock in the morning, and book your appointment if you want.
Absolutely. But again, a good stylist will get you booked before you ever walk out the door.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? When you're in there, it's like, let's go ahead and get you on the books for weeks, because you're constantly busy. I mean, a good stylist stays booked all the time. And my husband knows that, hey, I'm not canceling this appointment because it may be 2 weeks before I can get in. So no, I'm not doing that with you tonight. I'm going to get my hair done. So anyway, so let's move on. What do you say to someone listening who has been a stylist for a while and feels this is just too big a hill to climb? Can anyone do this?
Absolutely. All it takes is the right training and consistency and desire. And we all have fear, right? I mean, there is fear in all kinds of things that we do, and it's overcoming that fear and having someone who maybe is a mentor for you at that point to help get you over that hump. So I really recommend that they get in touch with someone like myself or other mentors that I know, and that they align themselves with someone who can really walk the path with them. Because this is not a Lone Ranger job, right? We're social people, and we need to have other social people around us. And other social people share things with us that we need to know in our day-to-day business.
Absolutely. And you said one word is one of my favorite words, Deborah, is the word consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the key ingredients in any business is consistency.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. And, and again, I don't believe whether you're a salon owner, you're a master stylist or whatever, I know that you do continue education. You go to seminars where you learn different things and things of that nature. You have product companies that come into you and do seminars for you and things of this nature. But I don't know, or have I heard about someone where they have a program of, like, it's a mentorship program, something like what you're doing, and what are the companion mastery courses and mastery membership programs? Because I've never heard of a salon owner talking about that. And I think that's just amazing that that's made available to salon owners, because there's a lot of money to be made in being a salon owner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the mastery program, I developed that from the book. I took the book and I expanded on it. And I came up with Q&A kind of things so that they could do a self-study at their own pace of the entire book. So I recommend that they have that as an addition to the mastery course. And it gives them some reference to go back to. But in the mastery course, I expand on the pieces of and the chapters in the book. I expand on what they need to know to get that system perfected. And it might be something like what's your mindset when you're thinking about branding? It triggers things for them, gives them an opportunity to answer their own questions. Because sometimes they don't even know what the question is. And so if we can throw the question out to them and they can answer it, it helps them go ahead that next step. So the mastery course is set up specifically for that. And then the mastery program is more of an expanded version of, they get all of those things. They get the book, they get the mastery course, and then they also get our private Facebook group where other stylists can interact and they can ask questions. And then so if they get in the middle of a day and they're having a challenge, there's always someone that can get on there and say, here's what Debrah taught us, or here's what I do, or, so it gives them a team, it gives them a community to work with. And then on top of that, once a month, I do a private teaching on a subject that might be something that came up it could happen in my own salon. And so if a client asks me a question or they have a specific challenge, I might do a teaching on that week. So I do that once a month. And that membership is very reasonable. I've decided to keep it very reasonable because I want as many stylists in it as possible. So I'm really looking forward to promoting more of that. And we're working with some of the beauty schools to get their students involved. And just really, it's kind of a mentoring program. Without a one-on-one mentoring, it's a group mentoring program.
So this mastery program isn't just for salon owners. It can be for someone that is a stylist. It could be someone that's attending a school to learn to be a stylist, correct?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely correct.
So you've gained a lot of valuable wisdom. If you were advising someone with a dream to start their own business of any kind, what would you say is the most important quality that person needs to have to succeed today?
Customer service. They have to have the customer service. They have to have the desire to want the customer to have what the customer wants.
Absolutely. And, and customer service also doesn't necessarily mean this between you and the customer. It's
Right.
also customer service between you and your independent contractors that you have in your salon, that you have a standards, you have ethics, you have morals, like you say, how they dress, that they, you've got to have a guideline for them to follow. Because I've been in a salon that sometimes that they don't have guidelines, and like you say, that could run a customer off saying, I will never go back there again. Right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and one of the things that I try to help stylists understand is that every customer is a unique whole being and they have their own needs and desires. And you have to focus specifically on what their needs or desires are, because if you're just focusing on what yours are or what a group of people, think that theirs are, you're not really giving the same customer service that client needs, right? So what's important, for example, is I open the door for the client. I know the client's coming, I'm waiting. I open the door for the client. Or if I can't open the door, I make sure one of my other team members can open the door. So the client feels important. And then, we make sure they have what they want to drink. I mean, these are just little tweaks to customer service that can make all the difference. So I know my client, Kate, drinks hot water. That's what she drinks. So I have that ready for her when she walks in the door. And so she doesn't have to say, can I have something to drink? Or can I have, whatever it might be. And I have one client, she never eats. So I make sure she has food. I mean, it's just little things that can make all the difference. But it's that focus on that personal and personalized service.
Absolutely. And you said one thing, as a past franchise owner, where I had lots of salespeople. one of my rules is I was the first person in the office and I opened the door. And when everybody came in, I shook their hand every morning as they entered into my building right there because I wanted to be the first person that they saw. So, it's a little bit different than a client, but that those people represented my business. And if they came in and they weren't smiling and they weren't positive, I say, I don't know who you are. You need to go to the end of the line and come back in. And I want to see, John over here with a smile on his face and who's positive because I wouldn't let any negativity in. But it is important. And they appreciated the fact that I was there to shake their hand, welcome them in. I fed them all breakfast every morning. I had stuff there in the morning for breakfast where I go get my hair done. Same thing with you, Deborah. They offer whether it's something to drink, something to eat, whether it's a soda or water or hot water, or whether it's a glass of wine or champagne, whatever, they're taking care of it. And that's what you don't mind paying. That's the difference between a master and somebody that's just going through the motions, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So can you share with us one or two practical things the person needs to know? We've got just a couple of more minutes.
Mm-hmm. They need to know that the customer is always right. Even when the customer is wrong, the customer is right. That's number one. And they need to know that they can do it, that they can do this, that they are capable of all the things they're afraid of. The worst thing that can happen to them is they fail and they have to start over. That's what happened to me. Sometimes I failed and I had to start over. So I recommend that they just keep trying because they're capable. They're capable of way bigger things than they sometimes think they are. Only in our little small minds do we hold ourselves back.
Well, absolutely. And a stylist, whether you're the owner of the salon, you're a master stylist or whatever, you're going to make mistakes. You have good days, you have bad days. And you know what? You can miss this little twig of hair that's going to stick up or whatever. And that customer is going to complain like I did. And it's like, it's too difficult, Celeste. Well, no, I'm not. You can look at this and see it's not right.
Yeah.
But anyways, we all make mistakes. And
Absolutely.
and like you say, I love the fact that the customer is always right. And I'm not one that complains all the time, but I'm real picky about my hair and I'm real picky about the color and the highlights. And and
And you
there's
have
gonna
that right.
when you're paying that kind of money, you have a right to have a voice, in my opinion,
Mhm.
for whatever it's worth.
Absolutely.
So these are such great insights. I love the fact, and I'm excited to share with several people that I know that are salon owners as well as stylists. But before we let you go, Deborah, how can people get your book and how can they connect with you about your Hair Pro Solutions systems? Please tell our audience about that, please.
They can go to hairprosolutions.com. And that has all the programs on it. And they can just sort through. The book is available there. It's available in both soft form through Amazon, and it's also available through digital online there that they can just buy it and read it right there. And they can also contact me personally if they are looking for a mentor or someone to help them at my business phone at 513-891-4247. And they can always contact me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. So any one of those formats, and I'm looking forward to meeting them. Would love to help them.
And the name of your book again is Hair Pro Solutions, The Systematic Approach to Hairstyling and Financial Freedom. Also, your website is hairprosolutions.com. And Englert and Hair Pro Solutions Mastery Course and Mastery Membership. I highly encourage anybody listening to us today, reach out to Deborah, have a conversation with her. I'm sure if they send you an email or a phone call that you'll give them a complimentary call to go into more detail about your programs and what you offer them. Is that correct, Deborah?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, it has been a blessing to interview you today. You're still going to be on here while we interview Joni here, and I'm just excited for everything that you shared with our audience and listeners. It's very educational, very informative, and again, I just cannot believe that people that are salon owners or stylists, why they would not want to invest in themselves with somebody like yourself that has the experience and the mastery, the hours, 40 years with the professional education that where you came from, and to learn that, because that wisdom is priceless.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm honored to be on with Joni too, so I can't wait to see you interview her.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. All
Thank
right, Joni. Amazing, isn't it? That's just, I love interviewing people like Debrah as well as yourself and the education that you bring to this platform. And we are so grateful for WCEG Talk Radio that they give us a platform to talk about different things because, how many times do you hear about situations like what Debrah has to offer and what we're getting ready to talk about you and buoyancy.com, buoyancypr.com. So
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you here today, and I'm going to read your short bio for our audience and listeners. Joni Sullivan Baker is Managing Director of Buoyancy Public Relations, a boutique PR firm that helps Christian authors achieve greater discoverability by obtaining interviews, reviews, and other media exposure from Christian media whose audiences can reach millions all over the world. Some of those interviews for clients, authors, come through participation with Buoyancy at the annual National Religious Broadcasters Convention as an exhibitor and media coordinator for clients. Baker and her team have built a reputation for professionalism and integrity. Prior to starting Buoyancy PR, Baker worked in corporate public relations and industries ranging from insurance to oil servicing to department stores. Then she discovered the joys of working for a Christian publisher. She sees God's hand in that introduction, which led to her current work serving authors, especially those just beginning their author journey. Originally from Chicago area where she started her career, she spent a few years in Scotland and then lived in several Midwestern cities before she and her husband followed their hearts to Tennessee, where their grandkids are. Joni now lives in Cookeville, Tennessee. Welcome, Joni, to WCEG Talk Radio.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. It's very, very fun. It's very fun to listen in on your interview with Debrah as well.
Absolutely. Just amazing story that Debrah has, and excited to help get that message out for her in several ways. And excited to get your message out here today. You and I have been talking about being on this radio show for a while, so I'm excited to have you here today.
Yeah, finally, yeah.
We just chatted with an author, and now we are pleased to welcome you because your work with authors. Can you tell us more about your company, Buoyancy PR, and what do you do?
Yes, that's always a good question. I do not publish books. I help publicize books, which means that once an author has his or her book written and they're getting ready to publish it, and then they're trying to figure out, oh my goodness, how do I let people know about this book? So of course, they're going to be on social media. They're going to list the book on Amazon. They may be working with a publisher that will have other ways of promoting the book. But one tried and true way is to help authors get interviews on what's traditional media, radio and TV, and then podcasts, and anytime I turn around, there's another avenue for publicizing a book. That can be interviews, it can be book excerpts, published on online publications. I've been doing this a long time, so I still, you remember the days when it was on paper, and which it's really not anymore. But that's to help people get discovered. So just one more thing. So if you have somebody who they're looking for something, I work typically with nonfiction authors with a heart story, memoir, or testimony, or some expertise in an area. Sometimes those are related. So if somebody who has a need, they go on Amazon, they look up a book, they see your book, and they say, who is this person? then they Google you as an author. I
Right.
help there to be ways that people can find you, that they find things about you as an author. That's discoverability.
Absolutely. And what does being an expert on a topic have to do with writing a book?
I know that's kind of a funny question, but people write books for many reasons. Business people listening to this, and like we all know each other through some women's networking groups, and they'll get advice to say, "Oh, go write a book in a weekend." And as soon as you've written a book, that just makes you an expert. And there's a certain amount of truth to that. Somebody says, "Oh, wow, okay, this person's written a book; they must know what they're talking about." Other times it's a little more subtle. And when someone has expertise, Deborah is a great example, has expertise in an area, then it's time to preserve that expertise, to save it, to share it with other people. People that are speakers, many times it's very helpful for them to write a book about their area of expertise. And then when they're speaking, have that book available and be able to sell it to people. So
You,
that would be my answer to that.
absolutely, Joni. And writing a book, it also it edifies you as an expert most of the time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of solidifies the fact that you are an expert. We all know, we've all seen books where that person doesn't maybe know the most there is to know about a subject. But I'm always telling authors, I write about it in a weekly thing I write, when you have written a book, you are the expert. You wouldn't be writing a book if you weren't expert on some topic, and to feel confident of yourself in that expertise.
Absolutely. And I'll talk more about this in just a second. I love this next question though, because I'm a firm believer in this, is why does an author need a publicist?
An
That's
author
one
needs
of my
an
favorite
author,
questions.
yeah, an author needs a publicist because when writing a book is a big job. Trying to toot your own horn is an even bigger job. And sometimes, we all have this within other parts of our lives where we know it's helpful to have someone come alongside us when we're trying to do something. Let someone else brag about us and be the one saying to other people, you need to know about this. This is just, this is really great. The author also needs a publicist because publicists are experts at working with the media and understanding what it is that the media wants. And media and podcasters, they're not exactly the same thing. There's some overlap, but to help the author understand the best way to work with other people to get publicity for themselves. And I work with, I think this will come up maybe later, but I tend to work with first-time authors or beginning authors. And I really love working with them on what I call the author journey, because there's a lot of steps involved. And I end up over the years advising on all kinds of things that are not really technically my area of expertise, but I've worked with enough authors to know, oh, no, that's real important. What you write on the back cover, that's really important. What you put on the cover, that's really important. And to help authors kind of figure out kind of what they're doing to get the book, not only to get the book to publication, but then to get it in hands of other people.
Well, and the other thing, Joni, you and I've had a conversation about this before, is, why does an author need a publicist? So if you are an author and you wrote a book, is it better to have a publicist promote you or you promote yourself? A radio show, a TV, or media, are they not going to be more interested in you if you're represented by a publicist versus not being represented by a publicist?
Yes, that's absolutely true. And thank you for making sure I said that. But there is an instant cachet, professionalism. If you as an author up here and you're just trying to promote your book, first of all, you probably don't really know how to talk to the media, and even if you're face to face with them, that you may not really, be that skilled at knowing how to do it and do it succinctly and briefly and what they mostly want to know. But there's also something where, if an author is trying to get on a show, I had an author one time I was trying to contact. She tried to reach out to somebody because she knew this person in her area, and they said, have your publicist contact us. What they meant by that was, we don't want to just hear from you, the author. We want to work with a professional person who understands our needs, our way of working. And once you say you have a publicist, all of a sudden it kind of elevates you as an author to being, oh, this person's serious. This person is professional. Because let's admit it, there are books published all the time. And it's not even that difficult, really. It's still difficult. I don't mean to downplay the effort it takes, but the barriers, a lot of barriers that used to be there are gone. And so a person can write and publish their own book, but that doesn't really speak to their professionalism or their seriousness. But hiring a publicist, that kind of says something to people. And
Absolutely.
it's a value, and it's a value. Though you'll get better results than doing things on.
Absolutely. And you're going to get better quality podcast interviews, radio show interviews, and things of this nature versus not having a publicist. And you said it a few minutes ago, it's a third party influence, and it does elevate you. And that says that, hey, you're investing in yourself, and you're just not out here trying to wing it by yourself and sell, one book here, one book there. When you have a publicist, that speaks volume, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Does a Christian author and book need a Christian publicist?
Yes. So I will add to that. I'll just be honest. So in my experience, first of all, there's Christian media out there. I work primarily, almost exclusively with Christian media, Christian podcasters. It's its own subset of media. I have maintained a database and lists and contacts with all kinds of media folks, podcasters and media folks. But there is this whole group that is, several thousand of Christian journalists, and most of the books that I'm working with are Christian living, as I said, and people who are writing really for other Christians. They're also aimed at people who perhaps are not Christians yet, to try to share their faith with them. But they're doing it, the most successful way to get attention is working with the Christian media. So when I would occasionally have people come to me, and I thought, oh, well, I can promote any book, or people will say, oh, I don't think I need a Christian. I'm just going to go with this other publicist. But there's nuance to understanding Christian media and understanding different types of Christian media, different angles, understanding who's going to want to cover what. And so that expertise, it's not just simply a matter of personal faith, although that's also very important. But there's expertise involved in understanding where to find an audience for a particular author's book.
Absolutely. And Joni, one thing that I just love about you is I love your heart and how you serve other people. You really serve other people first, and you truly care about them. And that speaks volume about you and Buoyancy PR, because not everybody takes that same interest and centeredness in taking care of people.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what sets you apart from other PR firms that serve Christian authors? I may have just said it. One of the things.
Well, I would say there are a lot of heart-centered people out there. I'd appreciate your comments. But one thing I do feel like does set me apart, I'm old enough that I came through my training as a PR person, doing journalism training. I have a master's in journalism degree. I went to J school with people that, went on to radio and TV, and I learned how they think and what they need to know. And the news is a tough business, and it's an even tougher business now than it used to be. And there are far fewer, if any of you are, newspaper readers, for example, besides the fact that newspapers are disappearing, the number of people on a staff of a newspaper is just really compressing. And I have a great deal of sensitivity. I try to serve the journalists. I serve the journalists because that also serves my clients, and it also serves me. And so if I'm trying to prepare materials, I'm trying to do it from the viewpoint that they want. I try to make it easy for them to do their job. That's kind of rule number one. And rule number two is don't annoy them as much as possible, it's pretty easy to annoy them, but to try to be sensitive to what their needs are. Over the last, I don't remember how many years, it's more than 5 years. I don't think it's 10 yet, but I've been participating with the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. So but what's most of my work, of course, is by phone and internet and email. But occasionally in these kind of situations, we're face to face with journalists. And I have been very gratified over the years to have some people say to me, we love working with you because your materials are professional, and they can tell that, there's a difference in how I'm doing it. I'm also trying to approach it as a news person. I tell my authors, we're going to come up with a news angle about your book. This is one of the reasons I don't do fiction, because I'm keyed to the news. And so the author may be, but my book is really about how to, prevent teenagers from, doing things that are not going to be good for them or whatever. About, it's this book. There's this author I worked with. She did a series of books for teenagers. But her news release that went out with statistics from the CDC and Centers for Disease Control about sexually transmitted diseases in teenagers. She was she was a little taken aback initially, but that was a news angle and even Christian journalists are still journalists. They have a job. It's to interest their audiences in topics that are of interest to them. If you're listening to a radio or a podcast, there's no rule that says you have to listen to the end. If you get bored or it's not interesting, you're going to turn it off. So I try to serve the journalists by helping them come up with interesting story ideas that, oh, by the way, are about my authors and their books, so, but it serves them to, it serves the authors best if the journalists are looking at it from the standpoint of what works for the journalist. And I've got not exactly arguments with clients, but I've had clients sometimes not understand that. And they're like, well, but the news is that I published this book. And I'm sorry, most of the time, that's not really news that you published a book.
Well, you tell us a little bit more about NRB.
Okay.
Please.
So, first of all, the National Religious Broadcasters is a nonprofit organization that is like a trade association of religious journalists. But now, over the years, and they have an office in Washington, D.C., and they will lobby, and like there are different things that they're working on. One of the things they've been working on lately is preserving AM radios in cars. That's like, but a lot of Christian radio programs use the AM dial. So they work on things like that. But once a year, they have a convention. And so it's just called the NRB convention. And the NRB is now considered to be the organization of Christian communicators. And that's a wide spectrum. It's people in ministry, not only people that are actually journalists. Some of the people that we've been seeing in the news, and with around the terrible tragedy about Charlie Kirk, are people that participate in NRB. One of his staff people is the guy named Lucas Miles, so I see it at NRB all the time. But they have a convention once a year. It's about 5,000 people. And it moves around from city to city. It's quite often at Opryland in Nashville. And we've been in Dallas and Orlando, and it's going to go to Washington, D.C. in another couple of years. But I figured out a few years ago that there are all this media that are showing up there it's a trade show. They've got training courses, they've got people selling software, there's an exhibit floor, but there's also a press center. So some of the media that's there are actually there to do interviews, but you can't have access to those media, to that list, unless you have certain status within the thing. So to be an exhibitor, you had access to the media. So I decided to start exhibiting. So I'm certainly not the biggest PR company out there, but I started exhibiting, and I take a few clients with me, and it's an investment. It costs some money to be able to do this. And but the authors each have a way of displaying their book. They do a book signing, they can get interviews, and we typically get anywhere from 10 to 15 interviews per author over the course of about 2 or 3 days. Now, they're taped interviews. It takes months and months for those to air. But that's been a really wonderful experience for me. It's a highlight of my year, and a wonderful experience for the authors. It's a little scary, and it's picking up speed. With COVID, lots of things that we're kind of like depressed. We managed to have NRB in 2020 because it was in February, but there were people that were sick. This is nothing to do with the topic, but people that were sick. There was somebody I got bumped for an interview, a meeting I had with somebody because he was sick. And then we all got home and read our got the news, and there we were in the midst of COVID. So it took a few years to kind of come back. That's true of, across many things in many industries. But I think this next year it's going to be really huge. So anyway, I have places for a few authors. I can't take very many to be in that NRB booth. There are some requirements associated with it. So if and I've got a couple people already committed. So if somebody's interested, then I would say definitely reach out to me and we can start talking. It's a kind of a long process, but we're getting going now. The dates are in February 17th through the 20th of 2026 in Nashville.
Nashville. Very good. Thank you so much. So you describe your work as walking side by side with an author on their author journey. What does that actually mean?
It means different things for different people. Some of it I've touched on a little earlier, where people have a lot of questions about what to do. It's everything from trying to suggest other people to do other things with them, because I don't do it. I don't do everything. I do it. There's many aspects to marketing a book. And sometimes I'm explaining that to people. I'm saying, well, just me getting interviews is, you need to do more than that. Sometimes it's advice on what to wear at NRB. I mean, it's any number of things. But I think for some authors, particularly for some authors, this is a scary process, and they're sticking their neck out there. They're showing, and Deborah's nodding. They're sticking their work, their words. They've published them, and now they're in this book that other people can see. Yes, you want the people to like the book and buy it, but they also may be critical of it. And so I just feel like walking alongside people, and sometimes it's just literally walking alongside them and accompanying them to an interview, helping them feel confident in what they're doing, and reminding them who they are, that God had this message for them to write, and helping them be at their best.
You
A
know,
wingman.
Excuse me?
A wingman.
Oh, okay. A wingman. I got you. For our audience and listeners out there, maybe you are thinking of writing a book, or maybe you've already written a book. How can people get a hold of you, Joni? Can they have a conversation with you? Because again, if you've written a book if you've written a book, you should be sold on that book, and you should invest in yourself with a public relations specialist like Joni if you want to really market that book and market it right, because what starts out wrong ends wrong. What starts out right ends right. And you want to start out right with a publicist like Joni. Can you share a little bit about that, please?
I can, yes. So you can find my company, which is called Buoyancy PR. The only thing wrong with the name Buoyancy is it's a little hard for people to spell. So Buoyancy is spelled B as in boy, UOYAN like Nancy, PR, CYPR. Did I do that right? BUOYANCYPR.com. Might be easier to contact me by phone, which is 513-319-3231. So at Buoyancy PR, there's a form you can fill out, to a contact form. I have a Facebook page, and I'm on LinkedIn. And so any of those ways work. But the other thing, are we going to talk about the
I got
the Friday newsletter thing? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So my next thing is how did you get started at doing this work for Christian authors?
Oh, okay. So I love this story because, I always was interested in reading. As a kid, I was one of those kids that was reading under the covers or carrying a book everywhere when I should have been playing outside. I was reading. And then I, was interested in writing, and I ended up in PR. I decided I didn't really want to be a journalist. I loved PR. I loved the idea of representing somebody else, telling their story, and I got excited about that. But I spent most of my career in the business world. So, I've been a Christian since I was 10. I was baptized when I was 10. My faith is very important to me, but I worked in the insurance industry, and then I worked overseas in the oil industry, and then, all these industries that you mentioned. And then my husband and I moved to Ohio, and I ended up finding a job with a Christian publisher who was associated with my denomination. And it felt like coming home. Here's a business meeting that opens with prayer, here are people sitting around a table talking about product development, but they're talking about how is this going to bless a Christian family. Now, I mean, it's still a business, and they were actually struggling as a business, so there's more to that story. But it was very exciting to me. And so when the opportunity presented itself to then work as a publicist, as a PR person for Christian authors, that just felt like a really natural fit. And so that's what I've been doing. And I've had to learn, a lot of things the hard way. But I find it a blessing. I feel blessed to be able to do this work.
Absolutely. And we understand you also have a second way of serving authors that want to do more of their own work. Tell us about Refresh Christian Media, please.
Okay. So I have a second standalone site, which is refreshedchristianmedia.com. And it's a way for people that have already prepared. We didn't talk too much about one of the things I do as a PR person, but we prepare materials, news releases, interview questions to send out to the media. It's a primary tool that we use. And there's some skill involved in writing that. But sometimes people want to write their own materials. They're on a really limited budget, but they would just love to get a news release out to the media. So Refresh Christian Media is a way to do that if you already have your news release written. And so check that out. Take a look at that. You just upload your materials, and we send it out to a list. And we will. I have a small team, and we will evaluate where it should go. We won't send your book for Christian moms to the sports writers. We figure it out, the topic areas, and we have a database that we use, and we will create a list for you for your topic.
Absolutely. And we've already said this earlier, but I want to reiterate it. That's just another value with working with a public relations specialist like yourself, that you subscribe, you pay hard-earned money for these lists. And they're not, there's hundreds, there's thousands of them on that list.
Right.
And having a media kit and having a press release and things of that nature are so important and critical in getting your book out there. Is that not true?
Yes, that is. I think I missed the chance to say that when she first asked me what I do, because that's like one of the basic things that we prepare, and one of the ways that I use that master's degree I have, which is writing a story that is a news story. And then we talked about news angles, but we do a press kit. So it has a news release, interview questions, your bio, and then like some endorsements. And then there's sometimes some additional things that we add to that. And that's there's some professional standards involved in how to do that. And I know how to do that. So that's why the journalists say that they like our materials, because they're professionally done.
All right. Well, I have time for one more question, Joni. What advice would you give people who feel they want to write or feel God is calling them to write, but don't know where to get started?
Well, the classic advice for people that want to write, and keeping in mind, I only do PR writing, I don't write books. But the classic advice, if you want to write, is to write, and to not overthink it too much, to not be too hard on yourself, just to start writing. And, nowadays you can dictate, there's many, many ways of getting words together. But I would say, in addition to just two other things with that. So one is that you keep in mind that as you are writing, even though you feel like God is giving you a message to write, please understand He's not giving you perfect words necessarily. You still need to learn to write. You need to be edited. You need to have critique. You need to have people help hone your skills. And if you're doing this for the Lord, you should want to do that. You should want to produce something that's of excellence and is the best job that you can do. So there are organizations out there that can help you. There are Christian writers clinics and conferences, and they tend to be regional. If you Google them in your area, you should find some names of some, and you'll be able to, if you drill down and read about them, you'll be able to see that it looks like legit Christian people who are doing that. There are also some organizations. One that I like to recommend. A lot of the people I work with are independently published authors. And there's something called the Christian Indie Publishing Association, CIPA. And they have they're a wonderful organization, and they have you pay something to join, and they have courses and all kinds of stuff. I would highly recommend them. And then one last little plug for me is on almost every Friday I put out a little thing. I finally just gave it a name called, I call it Weekending Words, and it's just like a blog post, but I send it out to a list. And if you want, and I'm aiming it at first-time authors or even wannabe authors, and I write about the author journey, how to work with the media, how to write for the media, what to wear to a trade show, all just anything that's of help. So if you'd like to receive that, you write to Diane at buoyancypr.com. That's my assistant, and she takes care of that. And if you are not sure you want to do that, if you go to the website, which again is buoyancypr.com, we have a blog, and those Friday things we write, like a couple of them a month, show up as the blog post. So you can kind of sample it by looking at the blog and seeing what's there, if that looks like it would serve you.
Absolutely. And you put that out every Friday, Joni. And for our audience and listeners, if you're an author thinking of writing a book, you've already written a book, there's a lot of education and information that Joni puts in those blogs every Friday. And I highly encourage you to sign up to get her weekly notes, because they are educational and informative. So again, Joni, thank you so much for joining us here today. And I think you've told everybody how they can get a hold of you. I also want to thank Debrah Englert for joining us today. Both of you just like a 1-2 punch about an author, about buoyancy PR and being a publicist. It's just so important, public relations specialist, excuse me, that they go hand in hand, and how it elevates you. And I know, Debrah, you can attest to this, how important it is to have somebody like Joni in your corner, and what it does for you as an individual, as an author, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
And anything
Wonderful.
else that you would like to say, Joni, before we close out?
No, I think I'm good. I'm just always worried that people are going to be able to spell buoyancy. So anyway, I think you'll find me if you try.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us today on Global Legacy and Wealth Building at WCEG Talk Radio. I'm Celeste Giordano with CelesteGiordano.com, your show host. Thank you, Penny Rogers, and our board for this opportunity. We'll have these two great women get out here and share their stories and their information with our audience right here. So thank you, ladies. Have a wonderful and blessed day. Have a great September. Finish it strong, and look forward to talking with you later.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.